Hello everyone. I welcome you all to the GST webinar of ClearTax, which is being brought to you in association with Yes Bank. We are trying to simplify some of the announcements which happened on the 23rd GST Council meeting, which was held on the 10th of November. So here's a quick look at the agenda for today's webinar. We are going to go through the highlights of the 23rd GST Council meeting. We will take a look at the new compliance requirements for all businesses. We will also talk about invoicing under GST. And let's take a look at some of the important returns which are GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. And then let's talk about how ClearTax can help you comply easily with the changes of GST and with this new law of GST. In case you have any questions, you can always write to us at gstsupport@cleartax.in. So here are some of the big decisions that were taken in this 23rd GST Council meeting. You may already know that GST rate was cut for about 200 items. There were several changes in the composition scheme and we are going to go through them shortly. There has also been some relief for service providers. And all businesses will now have to file GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B until March 2018. So this is like a big relief on compliance for businesses. So in effect, there has been relief for customers and for businesses. So this is actually like a win-win formula for the government. Now let's look at all these changes in detail and try to understand what changes for you if you are a business, how you can make your compliance with GST in a simplified way. One of the most interesting and important schemes of GST is the composition scheme. The composition scheme allows you to become a GST registrant and it offers you certain relief because you have slightly low turnover. You pay a fixed rate of tax which is calculated based on the turnover of your business. Some of the important changes in composition scheme have been that what they have done is they have increased the threshold for composition scheme to 1.5 crores. Now a lot of media reports have said that the limit has been extended to 2 crores. But what the Honorable Finance Minister has said is that they are going to amend the total limit which can which can be made applicable to composition dealers to 2 crores. But for now, out of that 2 crores, the extension will happen till 1.5 crores, right? So the earlier limit was 1 crore, which has now been extended to 1.5 crores. What they have also said is that the GST rate, the composition rate for manufacturers will now be 1%, right? Earlier it was 2%, but it has been reduced to 1% and which is going to be the same as the rate applicable for traders. So the earlier law said that, your rate for manufacturers will be 2%, which is 1% under CGST and 1% under SGST, but that has now been changed and it will be 1% composition rate for both manufacturers and traders, and restaurants who opt for the composition scheme will continue to pay the 5% composition rate. One of the major issues that a lot of composition dealers were facing and they were writing to us asking this question was, what do they do about the portion of exempted supply? Now, are they supposed to include this exempted supply when they are calculating their turnover at the time of paying the 1% or the 2% levy? What should they do about the exempted supply? So now there has been clarification, and what the government has said is that when you are paying your GST composition tax, you do not have to include the value of the exempted supply in your turnover. So the tax that you're going to pay on your turnover will only be on the taxable goods. But do remember that while opting for the composition scheme, when you have to look at your turnover, that turnover has to be an aggregate turnover. So when you opt for a composition scheme and you look at your aggregate turnover, whether it meets the 1.5 crore threshold or not, make sure you include the value of exempted supply. But at the time of paying your taxes, that portion of exempted supply does not have to be included. right? So this is actually a very welcome change. A lot of composition dealers who dealt in exempted goods were unsure about how they should pay their taxes. So this is a major relief. The government has also said that anyone who is supplying goods and services, do note that composition scheme was only available to service providers who were restaurants. So no other service providers are eligible to opt for the composition scheme. But there were some dealers, who did not do interstate, who wanted to be a part of the composition scheme, but they had to supply some services along with the goods that they were supplying. So for these composition dealers, the government has provided some relief. It has said that if you are supplying goods and you are also supplying services, then you will be eligible to opt for the composition scheme, provided that the value of services provided by you is not more than rupees 5 lakh in the whole year, right? So I think we'll just quickly actually take a step back and look at we were just talking about turnover, like a turnover for a composition dealer, the threshold has been increased to 1.5 crores. It is important to understand how that 1.5 crores it has to be calculated. Like we already discussed, it has to be your aggregate turnover. But do remember that in case you want to opt for it, you should look at your turnover for the preceding financial year. And if you have recently registered, like you are a new registrant under GST to the composition scheme, then your estimated turnover for the current financial year should be within this threshold, right? So the way to look at the turnover is either look at the previous financial year, or if you are a new registrant to indirect taxes, then your revenue, your turnover for the current financial year should be within this threshold, right? Composition dealers have to file GSTR 4, and the due date has been extended to 24th of December 2017, which is a major relief to all the composition dealers, because it was already 10th of November when this council meeting was going on, and the due date for composition dealers at that time was 14th November. So this is a big relief. These dealers now have a lot of time to do their returns. So these are all welcome changes. Do however note that there has been no change in the fact that composition dealers are not allowed to do interstate sales, and they are not allowed the benefit of input tax. So you cannot take input tax credit and you cannot make interstate transactions. However, you can pay a fixed rate of tax if you've opted for the composition scheme. Now, a lot of people are writing to us asking that, they haven't seen a corresponding notification for these changes. Where is the notification? What is the notification number? But do note that these are the only rates which are actually part of the law. So these rates and these turnover thresholds have been mentioned in the CGST Act and the SGST Act. So any change to these limits will have to be done via an amendment in the law. The amendment has to be placed in the parliament, and it has to be approved by the parliament, and only then will these changes come into effect. So we have to wait for that process to get over before all of these become applicable. The next major change that has happened because of the meeting has been the relief in GSTR compliance. So there has been relief. It is a much welcome relief for all the businesses. Now, what the government has said that initially the plan was to ask for GSTR 3B filing only up till December 2017. But now the government has said that every business, irrespective of what your turnover is, you have to do a monthly GSTR 3B until the 31st of March 2018. So right from July till March 2018, for all these months, all businesses have to do a GSTR 3B. And the government has also said that every business has to pay monthly taxes at the time of filing GSTR 3B. So this is actually, this moves away from an announcement which came some time back, which said some businesses may have to pay only quarterly taxes, but that is not true. So do remember that every business has to pay taxes monthly, and every business has to do a monthly GSTR 3B. Now, the major change which has happened for small businesses is that they do not need to do a monthly GSTR 1 filing, right? So, GSTR 1 filing is monthly only if your turnover is more than rupees 1.5 crores. If your turnover is less than rupees 1.5 crores, then you do a quarterly GSTR 1, right? And GSTR 2 and GSTR 3 filing has been put on hold for now. What they have said is that they have constituted a committee of ministers, and this committee will look into how GSTR 2 and 3 filing can be simplified, and they'll come up with fresh timelines for filing of these two returns. So for now, to become GST compliant, to make sure that you're on track, you have to file your GSTR 3B every month, and if your turnover is 1.5 crores or less, you should be doing quarterly GSTR 1, and if your turnover is more than 1.5 crores, then you should be doing a monthly GSTR 1. Now, the earlier provisions or the earlier law said that your GSTR 1 for the next month cannot be filed unless your GSTR 1, 2 and 3 of the previous month are completed, are submitted. But because GSTR 2 and 3 have been put on hold, therefore your filing for next month's GSTR 1 does not get impacted, and you can file GSTR 1 for all these 3 months. So here's a quick look at the timelines. It says if your turnover is up to rupees 1.5 crores, then for the quarter of July to September, you have to file your GSTR 1 by the 31st of December 2017, right? So there's a lot of time. We are sitting in November, and there's more than a month to do your reporting. Do note that some of you may have already filed your July GSTR 1. That's all right. So hopefully, the forms will come out in some time, and the requisite changes will be made in the GSTN network, and then quarterly returns can be filed by the 31st of December. For the quarter of October to December, the due date is 15 February 2018. And for the quarter of January to March, the due date for submission of your GSTR 1 is 30th April 2018. If you're a business with a turnover of more than 1.5 crores, what has happened is that now your July to October filing has been pushed to 31st December 2017. So do note that here what we mean to say is for all of these 4 months, so July, August, September and October, for these 4 months, the due date to submit your GSTR 1 is 31st December. So you will not do quarterly filings because your turnover is in excess of 1.5 crores, but all these 4 returns will have to be submitted by the 31st of December of 2017. So make sure that your reporting is accurate, you're ready with these details, and you're ready to file by the due date. For all of the remaining months of November and December, January, February and March of 2018, what they have done is they have effectively allowed you about 40 days to do this compliance. So, the return for November is actually due on the 10th of January, which gives you all of December and 10 days of January, say about 40 days for every month to do your compliance. So this is actually a major relief for all businesses across the board, whether or not your turnover is 1.5 crores or less. You get to benefit from this relief in your compliance. Right. There has also been some relief for service providers. We'll actually take a step back and look at these dates. So the relevant notifications have already been released. The government has provided notifications which have amended the rules. Thereby, these due dates have now been actually formalized. So you can actually, sort of save this particular screen and remember to comply with them as and when the due dates appear. So there has been some relief for service providers. Now they were facing a lot of hardship because they were not eligible for composition scheme, and the moment they did interstate transactions, they had to mandatorily register for GST, which meant that if you are a freelancer and you are providing some service you're providing certain consultancy, then you had to register for GST the moment your transactions became interstate. So they have provided major relief for such service providers, and what they have said is that if your turnover is up to rupees 20 lakhs, right, you are exempt for GST registration, which means that you are exempt whether you do interstate sales or you do intrastate sales or you are registered over an e-commerce operator. So a service provider with a turnover of within 20 lakhs does not have to register for GST. Now, we'll take a step back and we'll look at what was this mandatory rule. So there was section 24, which was part of the CGST Act, which said that if you are a service provider and if you do interstate, or if you are a service provider who's registered on an e-commerce operator, then you had to mandatorily register for GST. And this particular portion of the law, they want to amend now, and it will also come via an amendment. And what it will say is that if you are a service provider and your turnover is less than 20 lakhs, then you do not have to register for GST. So this is a major relief. If you have already registered, you have a registration number, make sure you're doing your compliance as and when that amendment has been passed. Later on, you can actually go and ask for cancellation of your registration, or you may actually voluntarily continue your compliance if it benefits your clients who want to take a benefit of input tax, or you want to stay registered because you're hoping that your turnover may become higher than this value. So then in those cases, you may continue to register yourself. But those who were facing a hardship now have this big relief coming their way. There has also been a significant announcement for restaurants, and we've seen that a lot of restaurants are facing this challenge. What the government has said is that they were of the opinion that several restaurants did not pass on the benefit of input tax credit to their customers. So what the government has said is that they noticed that the rates, the pricing of the restaurants did not change because of the input tax credit benefit they had. And that is why they have said that they are going to take away the input tax credit benefit, and all restaurants will now have to pay a GST rate of 5%. They will charge a GST of 5% from their customers, and they will not be eligible to claim any input tax credit. Now, this is a major challenge for some of the restaurants, who were built in places which commercial spaces where they were paying a lot of rent, or they were buying inputs from registered dealers, and therefore they were paying input taxes. And if they were a business who were allowed to take input tax credit, then they would have greatly benefited from this. But now input tax credit benefit has been taken away, and all restaurants will now have to charge a fixed rate of 5%. Do note that this 5% is applicable for all restaurants across the board, whether you are air conditioned or non-air conditioned. You have to pay this 5% rate. Only those places where the room tariff exceeds 7,500 rupees, or in case of outdoor catering, for these the rates continue to be 18%, and they are still eligible to claim input tax credit. Right. So so a lot of customers were expecting that restaurant rates will come down, and you'll have to pay lesser now to eat out. But what has really happened is that a lot of these restaurant chains have not been able to absorb the input taxes they were paying. So ultimately, they had to raise their base prices to accommodate the input taxes they were paying on commercial rent, on purchases that they were making, goods that they were buying to produce their output. So the impact for the customer has been nearly negligible in a lot of cases, and we do hope that the government will relook at this rate. But for now, the rate has been cut and input tax benefit has been taken away. Right. There have been some other relief for businesses, and that has been on account of late fees. And so there was a waiver that had happened for late fees for the month of July, August and September in GSTR 3B filing, and that waiver actually came slightly late. So a lot of people had already deposited their late fees, And what the government said was that we are going to waive it off, but actually the waiver was in some cases booked under the fee menu, which could not be utilized to pay your taxes. So now that the government has said that that particular waiver or that refund of late fee will actually go and sit under taxes, so that you can utilize it in future to pay your tax liability, and it will not get stuck up with under the fee head. So that is a relief. Now this is a real waiver, it is a real refund. You can actually use it to pay your tax liabilities. What they've also said is they have reduced the late fees. So earlier the late fee was rupees 200 per day, right? And it was 200 per day even if you had nil returns, which means that you were doing compliance, but you had no taxes to pay, but you still had to deposit a late fee of rupees 200 per day. So now the government has said that if you're filing for GSTR 3B, then late fee is not going to exceed rupees 50 per day, starting the returns for the month of October and onwards. So from October, November and so on, your late fee will be rupees 50 per day. But if you're filing a nil return, which means you do not have any taxes to deposit to the government, if you do not have any GST which you have to deposit to the government, in that case your late fee will be restricted to rupees 20 per day. So this is a big relief for businesses who were worried about having to pay late fees, a high value of late fees of rupees 200 per day. They can heave a sigh of relief. Okay, so we've already spoken about the late fee credit. What they have announced is that if you are in the business of export of services, note that this is only for services. So if you're exporting services to Nepal and Bhutan, you were in any case exempt from GST. But now what they have said is that you will become eligible to claim refund of the input tax that you have paid on purchase of goods or services which you used to make this supply of service to Nepal and Bhutan. So not only is your GST exempt, not only your supplies are exempt from GST, you are now eligible to take input tax benefit on the goods and services that you have used to make this supply. So this is a welcome relief, and a notification has also been issued in this regard. And if you are one of the exporters, you can start taking benefit right away. The Tran1 form, which is a form which allows you to carry over your credit from the previous regime into the new regime, can now be filed by 31st of December. Do note that they have also allowed you to revise this filing. So if you have actually filed it and you made a mistake, you can revise it, but revision is only allowed once. So make sure that you review it well enough, and whatever changes you need to do, just make sure that you are doing it only once. All right. A lot of people are asking us what happens to GSTR 2 and GSTR 3 filing for the months of July to March 2018. For now, the government has said that they're going to be working out may possibly a new form or new dates, a new way of compliance for these two forms. But the filings for GSTR 1 are not impacted. So do not change your way of working in any way. Just make sure that you're doing your GSTR 1 filing on time, and make sure you have data for GSTR 2 and 3, because at some point in time, these may be brought back. The government is looking at it, the government is analyzing it, the government is reviewing these forms, and hopefully we will come to know soon in the next, or possibly the couple of remaining GST council meetings, when these will be relooked at. Okay, so not only GSTR 1 and 3B dates have been extended, there has been extension for other GSTR forms as well. So here is a quick recap of what has changed. If you are a non-resident taxable person, then your first GSTR return will happen on the 15th of December. Composition dealers, as we've already discussed, they're going to file on the 24th of December. Input service distributors can also file their return by the 31st of December. And if you have to submit details of job work, your ITC 04 can be filed by 31st of December, and Tran 1 has also been extended to the 31st, and like we said, revision can be done. So put together all the changes you want to make, because you're allowed to revise only once. Okay, so here is a quick look at some of the rate changes. Do note that the government has actually given major relief with these rate changes, in spite of facing a hit to their collections. What they have said is that this kind of pruning will actually cost them nearly 20,000 crores. But this is a big major relief for consumers, so there is much to rejoice. Yes. All right, if you are an SME, you will have to do a quarterly compliance, so you can sit back and relax. You just need to do 2 GSTR 1 until the March 2018. You do not have to do monthly GSTR 1 filings, but the summarized GSTR 3B, the summary form of return, along with which taxes have to be paid, that still has to be done monthly. So you have to pay monthly taxes, and you have to do monthly filing of GSTR 3B. Make sure that your invoices are they have been created properly. These have been created using a software, and we are just going to talk about how ClearTax can help you do this efficiently. And make sure that you're filing your Tran 1 if you have any input tax credit that you bring in, that you want to bring in from the previous regime to the new regime. Okay, invoicing under GST. So, if you are a registered GST person, then you have to issue a tax invoice. There has been no change in the invoicing so far. It continues to be the same. A person who is registered under the composition scheme must issue a bill of supply. So that has been a change. They had issued a notification number 45, which said that if a registered person is supplying both taxable and exempted goods to an unregistered person, then you can issue a single invoice cum bill of supply, because there was a lot of confusion that if you're supplying both taxable and exempted goods, should you do 2 invoices? How should you do this kind of compliance? So what they have said is that you can issue a single invoice cum bill of supply for all these types of supplies. It is an existing rule. If the value of multiple invoices is less than rupees 200 and your buyer is unregistered, then you can issue an aggregate invoice on a daily basis. Alright, there is some further look at invoicing under GST, credit and debit notes. A debit note is issued by a seller when the amount payable by the buyer to the seller increases. A credit note is issued by the seller when the value of invoice decreases. Now, it's very important to understand how and where to use these debit and credit notes. Make sure that you are accounting for them properly, because this can impact your input tax credit. Seek expert help if you're not sure how these notes have to be issued, how these should be accounted for while paying your taxes. I suggest that to take help of an expert. You can write to us at gstsupport@cleartax.in and we are going to help you out. Okay, so no change in the mandatory details that have to be mentioned when you're creating an invoice. You can just take a quick look here. All right, so here's a recap on GSTR 1 and GSTR 3B. All businesses will now file 2 returns until March 2018. GSTR 1, as we already know, is a detail of all the sales made by you. Businesses with turnover of 1.5 crores or less will do a quarterly GSTR 1, and all the other businesses will do a monthly GSTR 1 and a monthly GSTR 3B. Right, so GSTR 3B, as we know, has aggregate value of all sales and purchases made, and you estimate your ITC, and then you pay the tax which is due in your 3B, and your 3B filing is complete. A lot of people have now started to get used to 3B I suggest that you use our product on ClearTax, which is an excellent way to actually do your 3B compliance. We'll also talk about our invoicing software, which can help you create your GSTR 3B in a matter of few minutes. Okay, here are some important tips if you're filing your GSTR1. You should have your GSTR number ready with you. Make sure you have a valid digital signature certificate, because it is mandatory in some cases. Other people could use an e-sign option when they have a valid Aadhaar card number. Make sure that you know your aggregate turnover details, and you must have details of all the invoicing which has been done by you. Goes without saying that you should be using a really intelligent software to do your invoicing, to make sure that your GSTR1 compliance is on track. All right. All right, so here are some tips for filing of GSTR 3B. I'm sure a lot of you are already used to filing this GSTR 3B. You still have to file it monthly. So if you're worried about any transitional credits of VAT or service tax, make sure that you have filed your Tran 1, because you will not be eligible to take benefit of this transitional credit unless you go and file your Tran 1. If you have paid any taxes on reverse charge, that is also to be shown in your GSTR 3B form, and this will not be available to be paid by utilizing input credit. Make sure that all reverse taxes are paid in cash. Right. Make sure that you are submitting correct data. I know that the government has, we know that there has been now a possibility for you to edit this form, but it's very important that your first filing is accurate so that you are not spending time in revising this form. Okay. So ClearTax, we have been working hard to make compliance easy and simple for all businesses. What we've done is we've launched a cloud-based GST compliance software, which means you do not have to download and install anything on your PC. And then you are forced to keep updating that version. We use a cloud-based compliance software. This can help you with end-to-end compliance. You will be able to do GST compliant invoicing, you will be able to claim ITC, and a lot of your returns will become automated. So all you have to do is that using this software or by using our GST bill book, the ClearTax GST bill book, you will be able to prepare your GSTR 1 and 3B in a couple of clicks. So do explore these softwares. Take a look at these softwares. We have greatly simplified GST compliance for businesses. If you're a small business and you're worried about connectivity, like availability of internet to do invoicing, you can opt for the ClearTax offline software, which lets you prepare invoices without the use of internet and still save all your reports, so that your return filing is easy. So these are some of the interesting features, and there's lots more that we are working on. You can talk to our experts if you're facing any issues. All right, if you have any questions, do write to us. We are available at gstsupport@cleartax.in. You can also go to the Yes Bank link, which is yesbank.in/yes dash GST. You can also give us a missed call, or you can call us, and we are going to answer all your queries. I hope this was useful. If there are more updates, if there is a council meeting which takes place, we are surely going to update you. Hope you found this useful, and do ask your questions and queries so that we can help you out. Thank you.